Hello. So, in this next 2-week unit, we are going to be looking back at lines. My hope is almost everything in this 2 weeks is a review from last year. There may be a few new things, but the idea is we just want to remind ourselves of the vocabulary and the formulas and the tools that we had when we were working with lines last year. So I was starting off right now. I've got a coordinate grid. Just a few details to remind us of. Your x-axis is your horizontal axis. Your y-axis is your vertical axis. I have numbered them so we can see that we're going positive and negative to the left, positive up, and negative down. And so with that, I just want to, as a reminder, help us remember the way certain points are listed. So for example, if I chose this point right here, we would list the x value first. So we would say that it is positive 3 in the x direction, and then we would list the y value. And if we move up, we see that it would be a positive 2 in the y direction. So our ordered pairs are always going to be x, comma, y. Similarly, if I were to put a point, say, down here, I'm going to follow that same XY pattern. I'm going 2 in the positive X direction, but now I'm going 4 in the negative Y direction, so it would be 2 comma negative 4. And then just as a final detail, don't forget that anytime you list values on the x-axis, one of your values will be a 0. So for example, if I chose this point right here, I'm going negative 3 in the x direction, so that doesn't change. That's a negative 3, but now when we decide to go up or down, we don't move at all, so that's just a 0. So any points on this horizontal or x-axis will have y equal to 0. Similarly, any of the points on the vertical axis, say I chose this one right here, are going to have x equal to 0. I've got a y value because I'm on the y-axis moving up and down, but I don't go left or right, so my x will be 0. So that's just a quick reminder about labeling our points. Hopefully that was helpful if you needed it. I'm actually going to erase this real quick because our main focus is not just the ordered pairs, but to take a closer look at lines themselves. So I'm going to take my pencil and draw in line. I want this one right here. So a couple things we want to remember about lines. First, they go on forever in both directions. So unless we're told otherwise, they do keep going even if they don't show up completely on our picture. In addition, we have 3 traits that we want to be able to identify about our lines. One of those traits is going to be the x-intercept. And the x-intercept is just a fancy way of saying where does it cross the x-axis. So if we find our x-axis and we go to that point, then this point right here will be our x-intercept. When we list the intercept, we want to list it as an ordered pair. So our x-intercept for this particular line will be the ordered pair -4, 0. And the reason we list it as an ordered pair is because if for some reason we didn't have the label x-intercept, we still want to know what the point is. If it was just the number -4, what does that -4 mean? We wouldn't know. But since it's listed as an ordered pair, we know exactly what that point is. In addition to our x-intercept, we can also identify a y-intercept. And it's pretty much the same idea. A y-intercept is where our line crosses the y-axis. So if we come up here, we can see that at that point of a +2, we can see that our y-intercept crosses. So I'm going to again list it as an ordered pair. This time the 0 comes first because we have a y-intercept. So our special points so far are x-intercepts, y-intercepts, and then the last one we're going to take a look at is slope. And you might hopefully remember slope from last year. Slope is a fancy way of saying how much does our equation grow, or how much does it change by. And so in order to find the slope when we're looking at a graph, I'm going to pick two nice ordered pairs. And what I mean by nice ordered pairs is they are completely on the grid values, right? If I were to choose this one right here, I don't know what that exact ordered pair is. I can guess, but I'd be guessing. But I know these right here, they hit my grid marks and they're nice ordered pairs. And what I'm going to do is once I've got those nice ordered pairs, I'm going to draw in a triangle like so. And the idea behind this triangle is this tells you how much the growth is. So I can see right here that in the x direction, or the horizontal, I am increasing by 2 squares. And in the vertical, or the y direction, I'm increasing by 1. And when we think about slope, its definition is essentially change in y over change in x. And so if I take that slope triangle that we just drew, we can see that the change in y is 1, and the change in x, or the horizontal, is 2. And so we would be able to say that we have a slope of 1/2. So starting off in this particular lesson, we have 3 basic traits. When we're looking at a graph, we've got x-intercepts, where we cross the x-axis. We've got y-intercepts, where we cross the y-axis, and we have slope. One additional detail I'll mention for this first video, when we are talking about slope, I want you to remember that there are essentially 4 types that we can have. As we go from left to right, if our slope is increasing, we say that it is positive. That change in y is getting greater. If from left to right our slope is going down, then we say that we have negative slope. That change in y is getting smaller. It could also be that we have a horizontal line. In this case, we would say that we have 0 slope. The idea is that there is no change in y. There is 0 change. And then finally, if we were to end up with a vertical line, straight up and down, then we are going to say that our slope is undefined. And I say this as a general rule because it's really good to just have as a practice. If you came up to this problem up above and your line was going down like this pencil, then you better expect to end up with a negative slope, regardless of what numbers you end up with. So it can be a good self-check as we're doing these problems. So this was our first video on lines. Again, I just want to remind you, we have 3 main traits: x-intercepts, y-intercepts, and slope.